Game 2. Here I'm going to be playing the Catalan. Opening. So, not entirely sure the order with the knight and the pawn going out. Which is fine. This is some kind of Slav defense. Put the pawn out. Here I thought you want to get your bishop out to the G2 square before the knight to avoid an awkward kind of trade where the pawns would be doubled up. So if I was to, for example, put the knight here, we have this trade which then leaves double pawn and then the king file open. One thing I noticed from here is if they move the bishop out early, is this is unprotected and a weakness. So actually move the queen out. He guards with his queen. Pretty much have to trade this. It'll double his pawn up. If I don't, this pawn's unprotected. And it's a bit awkward to guard with my knight. Unless I use my bishop, something like that. But I think he would just trade if I didn't. And I would be the one with the double pawn. Let's get rid of that. And in the end, we have a double pot better structure than he does. And I figure let's just now start attacking this pawn with the knight, the bishop. He protects the pawn straight away. And this was simply to stop the bishop pinning the knight. Yeah. Just wanted to get the bishop out. Not particularly sure. Feels kind of weird to put this bishop out because there's nothing. It's just kind of been blocked. Quite an aggressive move with the knight here. I figure pulling this back doesn't feel good. Just throw it out there, make him trade it. You see, the thing with doing this is at least he's taken. He doesn't even get the benefit of the open file. With his double pawn, he's literally just got his castle behind a double pawn by making him trade there. And here, I figure we'll push this bishop back, and we might. The only square it can actually go to is this one, and I realize you can do these colors with a right click. And then we've got this nasty pin with a pawn here. So not sure if the better way would have been to put this pawn and then this pawn, or to do it this way. This way feels more natural. I'm not sure if it's right though. So I think he sees what's coming here and just throws his knight away. See, by him just throwing the knight away, I have to take this because it's attacking the rook. There's not a choice between the bishop and the knight that's realistic here because he'll just take my rook. So get rid of the knight. He has to move that. I thought about just chasing this bishop around if I was to do this, but you're never gonna. There's nothing on this. Usually, I'd have another pawn here to push up, but it could still get here and then go out, which is awkward. But yep, there's nothing here, so I figure let's not do that plan at all. And this was just to get the bishop out to check here. He's attacking the pawn, which should also put me in check. So I think the obvious thing would be to put the pawn here. I think I just do the check first, if I remind myself. Yeah. I figure he's also setting himself up to castle now, and he's going to have a much better defended king if he was able to castle. So rather than deal with this bishop that's going to put me in check right now, we will cause a check where he can't block it. And he'll have to move his king. So if he has to move his king, we get rid of this plan he had about castling. Yeah, and I just found a different way of developing to protect the pawn. Thought about the other thing he could have done is to just do this. I mean, he might just still check me, but not particularly bothered about moving the king now anyway. It would mean he has to move his bishop to here or something. It doesn't really do anything. So I thought, let's just put the This putting this pawn up as well would block the dark square bishop, but it would make this bishop be able to attack this rook, which would just be awkward because my knight's still there as well. So we protect the pawn with the knight. He starts pushing his pawn up. Why not, right? I just opened this up for later. At this point, I was already thinking about trying to push this dark square bishop back, because it can't go to either of these squares at the moment. The only safe square it would have to move back is here. And I'm basically going to set that up with the rook right now. So I figure we're going to have to push this pawn. He could, you know, yeah, so he does like a random move. I'm going to push this pawn. You could go take. He can't take that back because it's guarded by this knight, and then do this. Now this is the basic plan. The problem I have is that this is in the way. So I'm already thinking about, even with that, where do I put this? Where do I put this knight? It just kind of feels wrong to go over here. It is attacking that pawn, but he could just move his bishop early. And then the whole attack doesn't work if he moves his bishop early, because it gives him... Oh no, he wouldn't be able to move his bishop early because of that, but... yeah, I suppose maybe that was an okay move. Looking at it now. Right. So what happened in the game? Just to go for the pawn attack. He's attacking my knight, not bothered. It's protected by the other knight, and the king is happy moving. So we push that back. Yeah, so in the end I found a better move than just putting in the pawn there, the knight here, because we think, okay, we force a check now, which pretty sure he would take with the pawn rather than just move the king, because his bishop is being attacked by the knight. Now, when he takes this, we have this move, so we take back the bishop anyway, and we just have a much better position from this trade as a result, because we got our rook all the way up here attacking the king and the bishop. That's exactly what happens. I thought he might move here or something. He didn't. I suppose if he was to move there, I couldn't put the rook here because of his bishop, so it is kind of a bit clunky, but I could have just taken that pawn, I guess. Yeah, so here I'm thinking about getting this bishop. This bishop is in such an annoying position because of this square. So, and this bishop doesn't feel like it's doing as much as it could do. I'm thinking, let's force the trade sooner than later. I wanted to get this knight up here. Maybe that was the play. I mean, maybe the play was just to get the rook here. I think, yeah, that was what I was originally looking at. I was looking at this, but then he would just guard it with his bishop. That's what I was getting the problem. And then I thought, okay, now we can trade. You know, something like this. But I think this gives him like other options. I wouldn't do that. He'd do like here. Yeah, maybe it was slightly the wrong order here. Slightly the wrong order to go for the trade first. I'm not sure why we did that. Well, we got the trade first. Okay, so he's just a bit random attacking this and just looking for the pawn break. Pawn to the end of the board. Yeah, so I had a bit more of a creative way of getting the rook on the f-file. Kind of like I usually never think to castle when the pawns are all in a bit more of an endgame scenario. Well, that was still available to me. And the benefit of doing it this way than just pulling the rook over is I'm expecting this pawn to be attacked down here, and it just gets the king 2 spaces to its right side faster that we're going to be able to make this difficult. Like, I don't even need to particularly take the pawns with the king. I just need to block them from going forward, because this is going to be very annoying that they're protected by the rook on this side. And we've created this, so he has to do something about this. So he blocks it. Played the pawn to e6. Now the idea behind this is we're attacking the pawn. We know he can't take that because he put himself in check. And this is creating a position where we're threatening to get our pawn to the end of the board. We were looking at doing something like, I was expecting him to do this kind of thing at some point, to do this. But you realize this will never, you know, we can never get checkmate with the rooks like this. And so we're then thinking about getting this knight up. I thought there's this side which would block any action of the rook getting out here, because he couldn't go this way. And let's attack this pawn. We were even thinking about getting this knight to the square the rook is on now, the castle, for a fork, but that's like 1, 2, 3, 4 moves away. It's just not. Things would move around too much by then. But if we can get it up to here, the d5, we can get the by c3 and then to d5, then we're protecting this pawn here, and then we can have the castle moved or something somewhere else. Okay, so let's get rid of it. So he moves his king. Doesn't really change anything. He actually still can't take the pawn because he would lose his rook to my rook. My rook is safe because of the pawn behind it. So here I start letting him start the pawn chain, which I'm not sure it was the best thing to do, but I'm just thinking about getting the knight to this square. It just feels a lot faster. Like I'm getting it to d5 on the second move, but it's also just immediately guarding this. Now the downside to doing this now is I'm blocking my own rook attacking this f7. But then I realized if we can get the rooks onto the same file, f file, then he has to take this. If he was to ignore this, I might even lose the pawn, but we have this, it would end up just a piece up. Yeah, so he has to move this or he's going to lose it. So we're forcing him to trade, which we does. And then the decision now is, do you push the pawn up or the rook? Now, it would feel very tempting to push the pawn up. To do this, we get the pawn one square closer to becoming a queen. He's going to block that, and I just don't know how we really go from there. You know, something like this. It's possible, right? So what did I do in the game? I actually took with the rook, which was maybe the mistake. I should have just pushed with the pawn probably. The benefit of doing this is we at least stop the king moving anywhere by having the rook still in his face. His move with his rook here is, I'm not entirely understanding what that's doing. He's protecting his pawn, I suppose, but I think he's thinking about attacking this pawn. Would maybe have gone on this file, even if you're planning to attack this pawn, would have been better. But I think what his actual tendency would be, can't do that either simply because of the pawn, right? So I thought here, actually, there's some interesting things we can do, leaving pieces hanging, which might have been the play. Not really thought it through. By pushing the pawn up, for example, here. Now, he cannot take the rook because we take back and we get a queen. He also cannot take the pawn in this position, which is attacking his castle. But we suppose he can do things like this. Yeah, and then we're just not in a good position. So I figure at this stage, not entirely sure what I should be doing is to just get the knight involved. Not sure how at the moment, but we're going to get the knight to probably this square, which is going to guard either the rook to the top of the f-file, or it's going to guard the pawn to f7. So this is the final position we're in at the moment.